Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mystic in Training, the podcast. Today we are going to be diving into something that has been gently tapping me on the shoulder since we first began this, and now it's actually shouting at me like, "Come on, this, Melissa, it's something that we need to talk about." So this episode is one for anyone who's ever followed their intuition or felt like they followed their intuition, but ended back in that same loop of who we were, of wondering if that inner yes is actually a really a yes, or if it's something disguised as something maybe for safety or keeping us small. Because what I really want to speak about is what if it is that your intuition isn't broken? Because I don't think it is, but I also don't think that your intuition is something that you always need to listen to. Oh, how could you say that, Melissa? I don't believe that your intuition is actually always right and always correct. Now, as I said in the last show, that this was a hill that I would have died on, that intuition is always the way. And there is certainly a truth to that. But sometimes our intuition is actually outdated because sometimes our intuition or what we think is our intuition, our inner voice, is a voice that is actually something that is leading us into the familiar, leading us into the same, leading us into the manifestations or the results that it was that we built up through the past, and not aligning us to the version of us that we're becoming, not aligning us necessarily into our highest self and into our highest wisdom. Now, again, this isn't a truth, but it's something that I've definitely noticed both with myself and with other clients that I've been working with. Now, I've spoken before about how intuition can often lead us into like those sticky situations or those uncomfortable parts or all these like, oh my God, WTF moments. But like we're super clever, right? And we have this incredible thing called free will, and we have these incredible brains, and we have all of this, all of these resources that we can use and that we can tap into. And sometimes they work against us in the way that if our priority, for example, for our life has been safety, if our priority for our life has been acceptance, if our priority for our life has been not rocking the boat, then you can understand that when we're like, right, I'm ready and I want to move into this higher version of me and I want to make waves in society, right? I want to make waves in my industry. I want to create the ripples. Let's do this thing, right? But all of our programming, all of our inner workings, our neurology, our psychology, our actions and behaviors are like, if we rock the boat, we're gonna cause some problems here. If we rock the boat, then people are gonna be like jumping ship. If we rock the boat, then I'm not going to be safe anymore because I don't know how to navigate. Then actually our inner resources, our inner workings are going to lead us to what? They're not going to want to create ripples. They're not going to want to create waves for sure, and they're definitely not going to want to cause the tsunami that a aspect of you wants to do. An aspect of you knows that there's something greater for me. And so we can go in two ways. It can either lead us, as I was alluding in the last episode, into, well, I'm going to create the waves anyway, and I'm aligning to my highest vision, and I'm going to do the thing, and the waves, and the tsunamis, and the ripples that it's all going to be. And then that leads us into something that's really uncomfortable. That leads us into these moments where maybe we've not navigated them before. And then those old programmings can come up and can come back in and go, deer in the headlights. I don't know what I'm doing now. And so maybe if we're like too far ahead of ourselves, we then can move back into those old programmings. Or our super clever brains and our super clever inner workings and our established patterns might not even let us get into that situation in the first place because the priority, what we've installed wherever you are in your brain, in your vortex, in your energy field, in your Akashic records, even, are suggesting to you that the priority for you is keeping safe, that the priority for you is, okay, well, how do I navigate this so that the boat stays as smooth as possible? And this is where our intuition or our inner voice can become a bit sticky. This is where it can be where we don't take this blanket action of, well, this is listen to your intuition. What does your intuition tell you? Because your intuition can, and these inner workings can be super crafty. And so, what's the solution? Well, for me, it's a simple answer. It's not necessarily a simple process. So, for me, this really comes into what is it that I'm aligning to? This actually comes into what is one of my core philosophies, which is around knowing yourself. I think whatever spiritual tradition you subscribe to, this concept of know thyself forms the fundamentals of everything. And so it can begin by becoming very aware of what those inner talks are, becoming very aware of what happens, for example, when you're thinking about this future version of you, when you're thinking about, for example, charging what it is that you want to charge, or taking the position that you really want to take, or for going for that goal or that relationship or that role that it is that you want to bring. That then what happens? Because our nervous system can, by the way, be aligned with our intuition, but our nervous system can also work against it. And as a human being living a human experience, our nervous system can come first, which, by the way, instinct and intuition are quite different things. And so maybe what I'm speaking about here is our instinct is leading us wrong. Our instinct tends to lead us to the past. The priority of our instinct is survival. And if what is encoded in our system is, well, survival means let's just keep the sea as steady as possible because this is what's kept me safe for this long. We've survived this long. Do not dare cause even one little bump in the sea. Well, then you can understand that maybe we're not being aligned into the highest wisdom, into the highest good. And so the answer becomes, well, how do I update my system? How do I update this? How do I allow for my intuition to actually be leading me into the highest and greatest good? And how do I know when it's being crafty and just leading me towards safety? And so the journey of self-discovery and self-development begins. We begin to understand what it's like to be our greatest, grandest versions of ourselves. We know our inner workings. We get to actually listen. This whole thing about meditation just being a silence of a mind, no. Our meditation practice can be a witness. What is it that's going on in my mind? What are the inner workings that are being prioritized right now? Where am I having an inspiration, an idea that comes in that feels really expansive, and then our inner workings are telling us no, because it knows it's scanning the invisible world and it knows that this will lead us into our discomfort and we're not ready for that. And so there's two things happening here. One is aligning to the greatest, grandest version of ourselves. One, it's aligning into this future of who I am. One, it's who is it that I'm becoming? Where is it that I'm moving to? Where has my golden thread been taking me? And where is it going to carry on? And beginning to install those feelings of safety, beginning to install these knowings that our highest self is never going to leave us wrong. The knowing, I have this very powerful knowing, which I'd love to talk about in a future episode, that everything is always working out for us. And so, how do we install this belief, this knowing that this greatest, grandest version of ourselves, these dreams that we have, these desires that are fueling us, or that are coming to us, or that are inspiring us, are actually ours? And that should we achieve that, that we know that our boat can handle the ripples, the waves, and the tsunamis, that we will still survive, that we will still be safe, that we have all of the resources that we need to navigate the ship. And so the first part of that is really aligning to that and really attuning to that. The second part of it is getting to know these inner workings, getting to know the inner talk, the inner wisdom, how we represent the outside world internally. Because as we begin to change that, it can begin to change everything. And so, what's going on in there? When does our nervous system fire up? When does our self-talk start saying, no, just, it's okay. Don't rock the boat. It will be fine. Doodle-la-la. And how do we know which one to listen to? And this was part of the reason why I chose to take my psychotherapy diploma, because I was spending a lot of time working with people to achieve their greatest, grandest vision, to really understand that their dream is their own, that everything's working out for them all of the time. But words and even energetics can only go so far if our nervous system shuts down and goes, no. And our nervous system isn't our intuition, but it certainly plays an important role. Our intuition isn't just the visions that we get, it's the whole sensory system coming together. And so, what I've learned is this regulation of self, of being able to come from that space of being centered, of being able to recognize when our system goes on fire and learning how to settle it, of reassuring ourselves that standing in front of a room full of people and speaking our truth isn't going to kill us, which, by the way, is installed in many of us, especially if you're on the spiritual path. And we will definitely be speaking about this in a deeper way, in a deeper sense. And installing and regulating and holding that knowing and that belief and that wisdom that it's okay, that this is our dream to activate. And so I think that where we begin, once we've received this greatest, grandest version of ourselves, that where we begin is coming into that regulation, coming into that, you know what, I'm safe in the moment, coming into that softness of I'm going to be okay, and reminding ourselves, creating those actions, even doing small things. Even if that is, for example, just opening up your Zoom and recording something like this, or standing in front of a few people, or if you really feel it, going to a comedy training and going and doing a stand-up piece in front of a bunch of strangers, right? Like, it's finding that way, it's finding that sense of safety and proving it to yourself, so that you're reinstalling a new belief in the system that's actually active and that's actually true, is a really powerful way of overcoming this sense of, is this right or is this wrong? Is this my intuition or is this my safety? But if you don't feel brave enough yet to do this, there's a whole inner world that we can work with. And so if I invited you to, for example, think of the thing that you really want to do. Do this with me now. So just bringing into mind this greatest, grandest version of yourself, and just allowing yourself to notice what you notice. Like, what are you doing? How are you standing? How are you being received? How's your inner world? Like, how are you feeling in that moment? What are you hearing? How's your voice? What's your body language? What are people saying to you? How do you feel inside? And just getting a sense where you are, what you are, how you feel, what the world around you looks like. And just noticing that, and then bringing back yourself back into the present moment. And it can be that quick, bringing yourself back in the present moment and noticing what's different. So you can bring yourself back into the present moment and be like, okay, well, I'm not standing that way. Or I can never imagine myself saying those words, or my material reality feels different in this moment. Imagine if this, if, okay, imagine if it was your current self in that situation. What's different? What needs to change? And I wonder what would happen if you took those elements one by one. So say you noticed in this future version of you, you were standing a little bit taller. So just imagine that, either physically straighten your spine and lower your shoulders and breathe a bit deeper, or just imagine that you're standing taller. If in this greatest, grandest version of you, the scene is bright and colorful with contrast, what would happen if you created this now you doing this into a brighter, more colorful, more contrasted version? What if the sounds that you were hearing were all around you in like surround sound, crisp, Harman Kardon beauty? What if you change that, the tone of your voice, the sound of your voice, so that it's not just compartmentalized, but it sits all around you and it moves and it has a fluidity? And what if you just started to use your internal world to start to make these changes? Because the incredible thing about the brain is it doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imaginary. So we can actually use our imagination to upgrade what's going on and to invite our intuition to align into this greatest, grandest version of us. We can invite for our internal representation, which some of us feel is our intuition, and it it isn't, but it certainly forms part of it. But we can invite this internal representation to be more like the grandest version of ourselves. And then we can begin to notice when we ask those questions, what's going in, what's coming up. Then we can allow for our grander self, our greater self, to be more present in our current reality. And I wonder if you do this. I think this is where we'll leave this episode. I'd love for you to do this and to just feel what difference it makes when it then comes to making decisions. Because isn't that what we are using our intuition for? Making good aligned decisions. So this is your contemplation for today's episode. To bring in this version of you, to imagine it in every way you know how, and to notice how you're experiencing it. Notice what you're doing, notice how you're standing, notice what you're saying, notice how you're saying it, notice how you feel, notice what's coming in. So the from the external to the internal. Notice like the timbre, the quality of the imagery that you're experiencing. And then notice how that is different from you now. Notice how that's different from you now. If you imagined your now version of you in that situation. So if it's on a stage, the greatest, grandest version of you might be standing tall and feeling confident and just knowing exactly what to say, and the crowd are cheering and all these amazing things. And the version of you now is like, blah, 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 or like going in and saying you're a bit hunched and you're a bit like, oh, they're going to be okay. Or you start the thing like, oh, this is really out of my comfort zone. I don't really know what I'm doing. Oh. And you're high and you're high pitched and your shoulders are up and you're speaking from your chest. And the greatest, grandest version of you is like, hello, I am Melissa and I am the greatest thing that's going to happen to you today. And you're solid and you're grounded and you're just feeling centered. So I wonder what happens when you just begin to change that internal representation of what's happening, of what's going on. I wonder how that will help your intuitive process. And that is your exercise. That's your homework. Who knew you'd listen to a podcast and get homework? Wasn't I always meant to be a teacher? And I'd love for you to share like what difference this has made. And then ask yourself a question that you really want to rely on your intuition. You can start small, it doesn't have to be big. We started this with an invitation to podcast and interview. Just imagine if you've got something coming up, a decision that you need to make. Tune into that version of you and then come back and just ask the question and notice. Notice. What's different? Come back, let me know. I'd love to hear. If you need a little bit more courage, my Courage Rewired free gift to you is still available. I will drop all the details in the show notes, and you just need to download that, listen to that, and enjoy. So next time, we'll go into the identity and how to really ground in these versions of us, so that we can trust ourselves a little more, because after all, isn't that what it's all about? So thank you for listening today, and I will see you next time on the Mystic in Training podcast. Bye for now.